Well, it's great to have all of you with us today. We're in part 2 of this series that we've simply titled eCOURAGE. And if this is your first time taking a step, maybe on our online campus or into one of our physical locations, I just want to encourage you to go to tcconline.tv/eCOURAGE, not encourage, eCOURAGE, and you can watch part 1 and 2 of this series there. Also, you can find it on Facebook, YouTube. You can download our TCC app. So many ways to get, this incredible, encouraging message series. Now, in part 1 last week, Bevan, our DuBois campus pastor, kicked off this series, and he did a fantastic job. I know for me, it was really encouraging and helpful for me. But he looked at, the first component of encouragement. That first component was, to speak life. And here's what we all know. Words can build up or tear down. And words, almost all the time, if not all the time, are never neutral. They're either building up or they're tearing down. And we have such an important opportunity to speak life, speak words of life into each other. And here's what we know. All of us need more encouragement, don't we? Like, there's none of us sitting around going, I just feel so encouraged. I can't take any more encouragement, right? Yeah, none of us do. And so let's be so intentional with our words to build people up. Now, there's one quick caution that I want to give before we get into the second aspect of encouragement that I think it's important for us to stay focused on. The caution is this. It's so easy to say words like this: great job, or you're awesome, or you're the best. And think about we do this all the time. We just say these quick words and we classify it as encouragement, but in reality, there's a significant difference between meaningless praise and encouragement. You see, encouragement is truly about being intentional with your words. Encouragement is really about being very specific with your words. I mean, what does great job mean anyway? What's you're awesome mean anyway? But when we become very specific with our encouragement, it elevates encouragement, and it breathes life into people. But it takes time, it takes intentionality, and it takes a fair bit of courage. Now, the Monday before we kicked off this series, in fact, we hadn't even talked about us doing a series called eCOURAGE. So before that, I woke up and, I received a text message on my phone. I quickly opened it, and, this is what the text said. Good morning, Mr. Trethway. I haven't seen you in forever. Well, I've seen you, but not up close and personal. Anywho, just thinking about you and wanted to tell you what a wonderful person you are and how much I appreciate you. Have a great day. Now, when I opened this text, I was in a place where I was just kind of exhausted. Not in a bad way, but just, there's a lot moving within TCC and Square One community. I mean, great things are happening, but there's a lot of plates spinning. Exhausted. I had woken up and I've been navigating a difficult journey with several of my friends. And, this is what friends do. You walk with people through, the up moments of life and the down moments in life. And I was still just a little exhausted from that. I was exhausted from, I just finished an 8-week preaching, teaching, talking, whatever you want to call this thing, like 8 weeks in a row, and that's a lot. And here's the thing, I love communicating, but it's taxing. It's taxing physically and emotionally, mentally and spiritually. You give all of yourself into it, and 8 weeks from before Easter, and I just, I finally had a week to breathe a little bit. And in that space of exhaustion, and let me highlight again, it wasn't bad exhaustion, but I was still tired. This text of encouragement came in from my friend Ed. And I tell you, in that moment, You talk about speaking life, breathing life into me. It's exactly what I needed. Not just to get through that day, but it helped give me energy throughout the entire week. In fact, in part 1 of the series last week, we gave everyone at our physical churches, this simple little postcard. Online, we provided a PDF, and we even just said, well, just find another postcard if you want to. But we carved out some time at our physical churches to actually give you a chance to write just a simple, we didn't give a lot of space, just a simple, specific message of encouragement to someone and to send it out. We've also made these available this weekend across all of our physical churches as well. And here's my encouragement for all of you. God will whisper names within you. And I would just say, when you feel that nudge, when you hear that name, when you feel God just kind of leaning within your spirit to write a note, write it. Don't think it away. Don't talk it away. Write the note. Just sit down. Just write a note. And you could either put a stamp on this and mail it. You could write a note and maybe drive to their house and put it in their door. Or maybe where they park at work and stick it in their windshield. I mean, wherever you want to get this note, you could even write the note, snap a picture with your phone, and text it to them. However you speak life into that person, do that when God whispers. Because I think about that day when that text came into my phone. It's exactly what I needed in that moment. And it helped fuel me all week. Hey, let's be a church, a gathering of people that speak life, that encourage people with our words. Because remember, they can build up or they can tear down. The vast majority of our words are not neutral. Well, all of this leads into, the second component of encouragement. And the second component is to, stand beside. There's absolute power in our presence with each other. Now, this 2-part series, we're anchoring it into 2 Timothy chapter 1, and we call it a book of the Bible, but in fact, it's a letter that the Apostle Paul is writing to, a guy named Timothy. And at the very beginning of this, the second letter that we have, Paul is speaking life into Timothy. And Timothy was, he's a young leader, and he was leading in a very challenging region. And, he had a lot of responsibility as the church was growing, and it was reaching people for Jesus. And, there was a whole lot of people that didn't want to see the church succeed, or the version of church they didn't want to see succeed. And so Paul's speaking life into Timothy, and you're going to see the second component of standing beside, in great clarity. And I think it will be a great framework for you for how important standing beside truly is. So Paul's writing, and Paul goes, so guard the good deposit. Now, the good deposit Paul was talking about this is the gospel message. Remember, the church, a gathering of people. I mean, the essential mission for the church is to share the gospel, the good deposit, with everyone, to tell them about Jesus and what God did through Jesus, and God raised him from the dead, and how God's love is extended to them through Jesus. And Paul's like, hey, guard it. It's important to guard it. But hey, you don't have to rely on yourself. No. He says, guard it with the help of the Holy Spirit who lives in us. You see, when you name Jesus as a subject of your life, God gives you his Spirit to give you wisdom, to give you discernment, to give you courage, to give you peace, to give you direction, to give you guidance, and to help you guard the gospel, the essential message of God's love. And as Paul is saying to Timothy, hey, make sure you guard this essential message, the gospel message. He reveals a pretty dark reality that they were leading through when it comes to, the church. Paul goes, you know that everyone in the province of Asia has deserted me, including Phygellus and Hermogenes. And think about the gravity of this statement. Remember, this is the Apostle Paul. I mean, out of our entire New Testament, it's Jesus and the Apostle Paul that makes up the vast majority of our New Testament. I mean, the Apostle Paul was the one who mobilized leaders to launch churches in cities all across the known world. And here, the Apostle Paul looks at Timothy, this younger leader, and says, hey, Timothy, just know, people have deserted me. People have ran away from me. People have walked away from me. People won't talk to me anymore. People won't return my messages. People have defriended me on social media. Like, this is Apostle Paul. He just said, hey, and not only everyone, and we're not sure what everyone really, well, what that really means. Was that literally everyone? Probably not, but it was probably an entire group of Christ followers who were part of this movement within Ephesus that just said, Paul, see ya. And then he called out two very specific people. He said, Phygellus and Hermogenes. He's like, hey, Timothy, you know these two. They were really close, and now they have walked away from us. And here's the thing. If you've ever been in church leadership, maybe in the past, maybe you're helping us lead now within one of our churches, here's what you all know. Here's what I know. People desert us all the time. It just happens. It doesn't feel good. It's not encouraging. But it happens. It happened 2,000 years ago to the Apostle Paul, and it happens to this day. And for the Apostle Paul, not only was he reeling from people that used to be close to him who just literally walked away from him. Remember the setting of this letter. Where was Paul when he was writing to Timothy? He was in jail in Rome. He was locked up, trying to help encourage leaders like Timothy, to lead the church forward as he's in jail. And then people who used to be close to him, helping him lead, have now deserted him. And what is Paul doing? Well, Paul is encouraging, even through his discouragement. Think about that. Because it's easy to enter into a season of life where you're just completely discouraged. Whatever the scenario, whatever the specifics, whatever you're facing, you know what discouragement feels like. And Paul had to be so discouraged. Being in jail, discouraging. People that used to lead with him, used to be friends with him, now they want nothing to do with him. You talk about discouragement. And what is Paul showing us? That you will still must encourage through your discouragement. And here's what I've discovered. You're talking about breathing life into yourself. When you're facing discouragement, when you actually encourage other people, even when you don't feel encouraged, something happens within you. Something starts to, take your discouragement and kind of it places it in its right place. Try it. See what happens. And Paul is modeling for, Timothy, this young leader, and he's modeling for you and for me. Even if you feel discouraged, even if you're in a season of discouragement, encourage. So Paul has just highlighted a whole group of people has deserted him. He called out two, Phygellus and Hermogenes. He said, hey, these two specifically have left me, have walked away from what God has been doing through the movement of the church. And then Paul says to Timothy, but Timothy, I want to highlight someone. He goes, may the Lord show mercy to the house of, and then he writes, and I think about when he pauses to write this name, Onesiphorus. I think he paused, and there's a smile, and there's this joy, and there's this excitement that erupts within Paul as he sits in his jail cell thinking about all the people that has deserted him, and all of a sudden he writes down Onesiphorus. He's like, but But hey, Timothy, God knows what I need. And God has sent in Onesiphorus to me. And Paul writes, he goes, because, and then he highlights two things that Onesiphorus, has been so encouraging to him in. He goes, he often refreshed me. That word refresh means to re-energize, to revive, to breathe in, to give life. He goes, hey, Onesiphorus, hey, he's been a catalytic engine of encouragement into when I didn't have what it takes, he was there. When I needed to breathe deep, he was there. When I needed that extra boost, he was there. When I needed a text on a Monday morning just to get through the day and the week, hey, God knew exactly what I needed. He was there to refresh me and was not, and this is so important, not ashamed. Not ashamed. You see this group of people, everyone that deserted Paul, Phygellus and Hermogenes that deserted Paul. It was because, Paul was locked up in jail and the gossip train had been, going off rails on the tracks. Again, not much has changed in 2,000 years. A massive group of people started talking about Paul, not with Paul. And they created their own storyline and they all left Paul. But not Onesiphorus. He didn't. In fact, you know what he did? This is what he did. He goes, on the contrary, when he was in Rome, now Onesiphorus was from Ephesus. This is where Timothy was leading the church in Ephesus. Ephesus was a major seaport during that day. Now it's the water isn't even close to ancient Ephesus anymore. But 2,000 years ago, it was a seaport on the western side of modern-day Turkey. Onesiphorus was from that region. So he was intentional to get to Rome, and when he was in Rome, Paul says he searched, and not just kind of searched. Not just, he had a free day and he leveraged some time. No, Paul goes, no, he searched hard. He was intentional. He leveraged time and energy. And you think about this 2,000 years ago. It's not like he had an iPhone and Google Maps to find Paul. He leveraged all of himself to go find Paul. When everyone else was walking away from Paul, when other church people, other Christ followers were deserting Paul, Onesiphorus came and found him. And he searched him until Paul goes, until he found me. Until he found me. I mean, this is the picture of what standing beside looks like. Think about that. Think about the encouragement that Paul must have felt when he showed up. That day when all of a sudden Paul saw his face. It is a picture of what's standing beside. And here's my encouragement for you. Be that encouragement to the church leaders around you. Be that person who chooses to stand beside, not to desert, but to stand beside. As Paul's writing to Timothy, he's like, hey, Timothy, yeah, people are deserting you as well, but just know there are people that actually know what it means to love and live like Jesus. There's people like Onesiphorus who actually embodies the love of Jesus. And then he ends by writing this. He goes, may the Lord grant that he will find mercy from the Lord on that day. You know very well in how many ways he helped me in Ephesus. You see, Onesiphorus had this pattern of, helping, serving Paul. He's been doing it for a long, long time. And I think about this word helped. Now in the Greek, the word Paul would have written down was this Greek word, diakoneo. Diakoneo is a verb, so it's an action word. So when he wrote how he helped me, I mean, this was action, how he helped me. Now the noun form of this Greek word is diakonos. And this is really important because maybe for you, you grew up in a church, and in your church growing up, well, there are people that had the title of deacon. Now, you know, if you were in one of those churches, you remember the deacons. Maybe you were raised in a church without them. That's okay. But some of you, you know who you are. Right? You remember there are deacons in the church. Well, the word deacon literally comes from, well, this Greek word diakonos. And, well, the word diakoneo and diakonos, which are, well, just the verb form or the noun form, all mean serve. That's all that word means, is to serve. And you might have been wondering, and maybe this is you, and this is okay. Maybe you've had this question because you were raised in a context in the church that had deacons, and maybe you wondered, why doesn't TCC not have anyone called deacons? Well, this is why. The word means serve. So you know what we have at TCC? We have serve teams. That's why. It's just, we're taking that Greek word and we're like, hey, we want people to serve. So we have serve team, and we have serve team members, both noun and verb forms. Like, we want to serve each other. And in fact, this summer, we have such a great opportunity for you to serve with us. And remember, when we serve people, you talk about speaking life and standing beside. It's a beautiful picture of it. So you can go to tcconline.tv/summer, and at that link, you can find everything that's happening this summer across all of our churches. And I tell you, there's a lot of things happening in all of our communities and all of our towns through the church. And we're so excited. Why? Because we want to be a bright light in every one of the communities that we have a church in. So there's so much going on, But guess what? Yeah, we need you. Don't look at the person sitting next to you. Don't look at the person sitting in front or behind you. Or if you're connecting online, don't think about someone else. No. We need you to be a part of everything going on this summer across all of our churches. And we've made it so simple. Here's how simple it is. Can you smile? We need you to serve with us. Do you like to organize things? We need you to serve with us. Do you love just when a child's face just erupts with a smile? We need you to serve with us. Do you like planning? Do you like setting up and tearing down? We need you to serve with us. Are you good with capturing video or images, whether you have an iPhone but you have an eye for it, or maybe you have one of the really fancy cameras? Great. We need you to serve with us. We have so many different opportunities, and this is all you need to do. It's all you need to do. You can go to tcconline.tv/summer. You'll find the link there to serve, or easier yet, text the word serve to 833-709-0962. We'll send you the link. It will take you 5 seconds, okay, maybe 7. And we'll have one of our campus pastors reach out to you. So serve with us. Find an event or two this summer connected to one of our churches in one of our communities. And let's together encourage by serving. By breathing life into people, speaking life into people, smiling at people, blowing up a balloon for a child, helping a child walk in and feel loved and accepted at one of our summer events, walking up to someone you don't even know and engaging in a conversation that you never know how God is going to use your life and your story and your smile to be an encouragement, to speak life, to stand beside someone else. So come serve with us. Let's have an incredible summer together. Well, there's 3 very, very specific areas when we talk about standing beside that I just want to highlight in the last few moments that we have together. And the first area of standing beside really is all about just showing up. That's why I love when Paul said to Timothy, hey, Onesiphorus, he showed up. He searched hard and he found me. When everyone else was deserting me, hey, Timothy, guess what? He showed up, and that's a powerful picture of standing beside. Who do you know is going through a very difficult time right now? Just show up. So many times we do things like this. We send a text, hey, if you need something, I'm here. I'm available. Just show up. Show up. Knock on their door. Show up to their work and say, I'm taking you out to lunch. Show up and say, hey, I'm going to watch your kids today because I know you need some space. Just show up. So many times we ask, and guess what we should do? We should just show up. So show up. Second one, serve. Take someone food. Don't ask them if they need food. Just take it to them. Again, show up. Take their kids. Well, ask first. Just don't take their kids. You know what I mean? Create some space for them. Serve. What does that person really need? And just do it. Don't ask. Just do it. Just serve them. That's standing beside. And the third one. Sometimes speaking life and standing beside doesn't require words. Sometimes silence, but your presence is exactly what that person needs. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you just can't find the words? So you stumble around trying to find the right words to say? Sometimes speaking life and standing beside is just being silent, but sitting in the hurt, sitting in the pain, sitting in the mess with the person, just sitting with them. Don't overthink it, but be intentional. So, will you have the courage to encourage? When God whispers, when God nudges, when God kind of puts some pressure on you to write that note, to show up, to serve, to be silent, to speak life, when you sense that, because you will, you are right now, will you have the courage to encourage, to speak life, and stand beside? Again, this summer, we have so many great opportunities. Join us. And let's be a gathering of people, a church that breathes hope into all of our communities by just being encouragers, being present, being specific with our words. And you know what? Sometimes a smile is exactly what a person needs. Let's encourage. Let's encourage. Let's have the courage to encourage. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for who you are. For Paul being so open to his, discouragement. Church people leaving him, deserting him. But God, you know exactly who he needed in that season. And for Timothy, a young leader who had someone like Paul locked up in jail, who chose through his discouragement to encourage him. Lord, I just pray that we'll encourage each other. We'll encourage people that you bring into our path, that this summer will be filled with opportunities that we have to encourage people we know and people we don't know. Lord, give us the courage to encourage. In your name I pray. Amen.